This video is sponsored by Naivete because an unaimed arrow never misses. Hey guys, welcome to day 3 of our Alaskan Highway adventure. So join me for a rest stop along the Alaskan Highway. You make me puke? Yeah, magic, yeah. Is there a bear? Okay, no bear. Oh, wait, dog, there's a dog. Nice. Oh, look at that. Good job, Cole. We've got a bear. Good morning and welcome to day 4 of our epic road trip adventure down the Alaskan Highway, where we're driving a BMW i8 all the way from Anchorage to Dawson Creek, which is the start of the Alaskan Highway, and then all the way back to Colorado. Now, if you've been watching this show and you've seen the episodes, you know that this is the 4th day and we are almost to the end of the Alaskan Highway. It's either 300 miles or 300 kilometers from here is Dawson Creek, and that's where it starts, but for us that's where it ends. But in this episode, I thought it'd be fun to talk about tips that you may want to know if you're going to drive the Alaskan Highway. So I'm going to give you the top 5 tips for driving up the Alaskan Highway all the way to Fairbanks, because I've gone to Fairbanks twice, and more importantly, I've actually gone all the way up to Prudhoe Bay twice now. So if you're on a motorcycle, I'll give you those tips as well. So let's start with number 5 when we get in the car. Number 5 of the top 5 tips of driving the Alaskan Highway, or the Alcan. And that has to be, if you're doing this, it has to be about the trip and not the destination. Not that there's anything wrong with Fairbanks or Prudhoe Bay or even Anchorage where we started, but the problem is there's not a lot up there, especially if you're going to Prudhoe Bay. It's basically an oil field, and the first time I drove up there with my son, we got up to Prudhoe Bay and there was nothing to see. We didn't get TSA permission to go to the Arctic Ocean, so we couldn't do that, so we kind of turned around and came back. So it really is about the trip and not the destination. Perhaps the most interesting thing on this entire trip is just south of Fairbanks is a little town called the North Pole, and a lot of people go to the North Pole because they want to check out Santa, see the reindeer, and perhaps mail their Christmas cards, because then it gets stamped in North Pole. But otherwise, the destination is not so grand. Not that there's, like I said, anything wrong with Alaska. Beautiful places in Alaska, but I would say if you want to see Alaska, go up the Inside Passage on either a cruise ship or take a ferry. And I've done both of those, and that's probably a better way to see many of the great sites in Alaska, just because those tour ships are set up to stop in towns like Skagway, where there's actually, historical remnants of the gold rush. You can do things like have caribou dinners. Here, it's really about the beauty and the mountains and the call of the road. So if you love driving, and if you love getting up in a different town every day, and if you love meeting interesting people, and if you love a little bit of danger, then yeah, the Alaskan Highway is for you. All right, the number 4 tip has to do with kind of peace of mind and safety. If you're planning on using this along the Alaskan Highway, you're going to be disappointed, because about 90% of it doesn't have any cell phone coverage. So it's always good to have this, which is easy to say and a little bit harder to do, but this is a satellite phone that we keep at the office. We brought it with us. Having said that, we never had to use it so far, but it does give you a peace of mind, especially when driving on a road where there are maybe 300 to 400 miles between towns and nothing but bears, moose, and rabbits. So definitely, if you have a satellite phone, definitely think about doing it. The other good tip that I got from watching actually videos is never let your gas get below half empty. There are long stretches of highway where there either are no gas stations, or if you look online, there are gas stations, but when you get to them, they've closed or aren't open for the season, or have been run over by rabbits. Seriously, I'm not joking about that. So you definitely want to be sure to not run out of gas. A lot of people bring an extra gas canister. If you're watching the series, that's what we did. It didn't exactly work for us because, well, it smelled like gas in the car. And so we dumped it. And luckily this BMW i8 actually has, okay, let's go up to 200 here. That's another thing. On these self-serve stations, you have to pick how much you want to fuel up to, and then it processes your car to that amount. And then you don't necessarily put $200 worth of gas in the car, but it gives you that much Canadian dollars. It gives you that much authorization. So like I was saying, this BMW i8, because it's a OG hybrid, actually gets really good fuel economy. We've been getting about 36 mpg with, and when you see the video of how bad the road is, that's pretty amazing. And we have a realistic range of probably 400 miles on a tank full, and that's pretty darn good. But like I say, a lot of people bring an extra canister of gas. We chose to do that and then chose to dump it and give it away because, well, it just stink up the car too much. A lot of people actually put it on the outside of their car or truck. Now, another tip is to bring a spare tire and wheel, of course. And what we did was we actually bought a wheel from an i3, which is a kind of a sister car to the i8, so it has the same bolt pattern. I think we haven't tried it. We haven't had to try it as this car. So if we had gotten a flat, we could have taken, hopefully, or we can still hopefully take that tire and wheel and put it on here and limp our way to civilization. I think that's an important tip because the road is really bad, and I would definitely not recommend bringing a car with Pirelli P0s, check it out, on this trip. These are definitely high performance sports tires, but they have done so far magnificently, especially in all the gravel sections. But you know, if I were doing it, I'd bring something with like a truck that has a spare tire and all terrains. Other safety concerns that you may want to think about would be things like medical issues. Like I said, you know, there aren't a lot of hospitals. In fact, there aren't a lot of towns. There's a lot of nothing. So if you've got some issues going on, you may want to get those sorted out. But in general, just use common sense. Bring power bars. We brought 2 liters of extra water that ended up tasting like fish, so those weren't usable. We made a lot of mistakes, so don't do what we're doing, do what I'm saying, I guess is what the lesson of number 4 is. But in general, it's not as crazy scary. It's just common sense, and well, it could be crazy scary. You know, it's always one of those things that's easy until it all goes wrong, and then when it all goes wrong, it gets really ugly, because I'm sure having like this car trailered back to Calgary would be very expensive. But now you know how to avoid that. Number 3 on the list of top 5 tips when driving the Alaskan Highway. Keep in mind there is, I'm going to say, a BC, Yukon, and Alaskan tax on everything. So I just paid 61 Canadian for 30 liters of fuel. And in general, everything up here is about 25% more expensive, but it can get much more expensive than that. So for instance, come on in with me. So we slept at Whitehorse yesterday, and we stopped at a hotel called the Sternwheeler. And you know, if it were me giving out stars, I would give it no stars. And yet the hotel was $280 a night per person. So that's not a 50% surcharge. That's like a 250% surcharge. So if I were doing this again, I would probably bring a different vehicle, something that I could camp in, or something that can tow a camper. And I'm not going to jump to number 2, we'll get there in a second. But basically the idea is, if you're kind of at the mercy of picking hotels for the night, then I would say you're going to spend a lot of money. Now, the hotel we just stayed at here in Fort Nelson was $100 a night, and it was kind of a basic hotel, and that was exactly fine. But the Sternwheeler was no better than a basic hotel, yet it was $280 a night in Whitehorse. And the further north you go, the more expensive things get. And that is something that I guess you just have to kind of reckon with. And like I say, if I were doing this, I would probably bring my own sleeping quarters, and that way you could stop at one of the many pullouts, campsites along the way, enjoy the beauty of the Alaskan highway, and not feel like you're getting bent over. And you know what? Because it's 11 o'clock at night, you've been driving since 6 in the morning. This is what happened to us yesterday. And you're super tired, and you're lucky to have a hotel room in Whitehorse that is still open and that has a warm bed. So I think the better way to do this is to do it camping. And that doesn't have to be a fancy camper or a fancy go fast camper on the back of your pickup truck. It could just be as simple as a tent, but for us that'd be very hard because we've got camera gear and we have to charge stuff up overnight, and so this is more of a business expense, and so you can kind of stomach it that way. But I gotta tell you, if I were driving this and the money were not coming out of the business, which is also painful, but you know what I mean, if it were coming out of my own pocket, you could see a lot more for a hell of a lot less by taking an Alaskan cruise, which is going to cost you, I don't know, last time I did it, I think they were anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 depending on how fancy of a stateroom you want, and you're going to get better entertainment, better food, better scenery for a lot less money, and you won't have to worry about eating breakfast at McDonald's to keep the expenses down, as we're about to do, because you're kind of ensconced in the comfort of a cruise ship. The downside to that, of course, is this is much more of an adventure, and that is much more of a vacation. So adventure, vacation, it's up to you. But that's tip number 3. Everything just costs a lot more. The number 2 tip for driving the Alaskan highway, if you're doing it because you're one of those people who loves food, who wants to enjoy all the international cuisine, the spectacular tastes of the Yukon, Alaska, and British Columbia, then this is not the road trip for you because for the most part that way is north, and when you're heading up there, there's not a lot of restaurants. In fact, there's not a lot of grocery stores. And if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, then you might as well just outright bring your stuff with you. In fact, last time we went up to Prudhoe Bay, one of our guys, Jay, who was vegan, basically dined on nothing but hummus and pita bread for the entire week of the trip, because the highest level of cuisine you're going to get, and I'm sorry if there is some 4-star Michelin restaurant somewhere along the Alaskan highway, even though I doubt it very much. Let's get in the car. The highest level of cuisine you're going to get is that of a hamburger. So if you love hamburgers or BLTs or the basics of kind of American/Canadian cuisine, then you're going to do well. Poutine at McDonald's, Tim Hortons, but in terms of like haute cuisine, there's not a lot of it. And if you're like me and you don't enjoy fish, it gets even tougher, because you can get salmon, obviously, and river caught fish on the road trip, but for the most part, this is not a place for foodies. It's also not a great place if you have a car that only has one cup holder, Cole. What are we gonna do about that? What are we gonna do about that? Having said that, we brought along some power bars, bananas, oranges, and we did just well. But if you're looking for one of those vacations where you're gonna get the best food and you're gonna experience new cultures, you're better off once again to be on a cruise ship, because they've got that sorted. They'll stop you in Skagway. You can go to a Western show and have elk or buffalo but along the Alaskan Highway, it's going to be McDonald's, Tim Hortons, or basic restaurants, mom and pop kind of places, or if you're Jay, a lot of hummus. So before we get to number one, I kind of wanted to show you a typical gas stop along the Alcan. You can see it's kind of a big container of gas and a serve yourself. And then here's kind of a typical restaurant on the Alcan. Like I say, if you're looking for your 5-star dining experience, this isn't it. But we are here at number one. The number one tip for driving the Alaskan Highway is make sure you have the proper vehicle. And for that, of course, I mean, get yourself a 10-year-old, maybe 9-year-old BMW i8, like we did. They were about $50,000, and be sure to take off the snow tires that were on it and mount some Pirelli P0s, because there's nothing like having a high-performance summer tire when you're going down the Alaskan Highway. Of course, I'm joking. I would say that this is probably not the best choice of your vehicle to take on this road, but it's actually not a bad choice, because there are some incredible sweeping roads that can be a lot of fun to drive. Now, the speed limit on the Alcan varies from like 2 kilometers when you're going through some rough patches. Seriously, it's more like 50, maybe 80, maybe 100 kilometers. And of course, that in miles is pretty slow. You probably can go faster. We were just passed by a guy going about 160 K, which would be 100 miles an hour. But as an American in Canada, I don't want to do that. Not just because it's illegal, but because you could come around a corner and hit a moose or bear or rabbit, which would not be good. So if it were me, why don't we jump in the car and we can keep talking about this as we drive, and you can kind of get a sense for what the road looks like. Kind of here toward the southern end of the Alcan. The farther north you go from Dawson Creek, the rougher the road gets. So far from Fort Nelson down to Dawson Creek, the road has been fantastic. I mean, just fabulous. No issues whatsoever. But the farther north you go, the worse the road gets. And when you get past Whitehorse, you end up in a lot of construction zones with just a lot of gravel and rocks that are being thrown up. And so for that, if you show them like over here, like a Jeep like that might be a good choice. You know, something that's a little bit more off-roady. And then if you're riding a motorcycle, once you get past the Canadian and into the American part of the Alcan, I'm talking about, of course, Alaska, between, let's say, the border and Tok, then the road gets really rutted out with big potholes. I mean, we were dodging them like crazy, and there was probably a good hour or two where I was seriously worried about blowing out a tire or damaging a rim, because it was that rough and ready. Plus, it was raining. And if you're on a motorcycle especially, I would say, you know, you're there at least in danger of getting, you know, thrown off your bike. I mean, these are big potholes that you wouldn't want to hit in a car, let alone on a motorcycle. Another tip before we get to the vehicle that I would choose for this road is that if you're going to go all the way up to Dead Horse or Prudhoe Bay and you want to see the Arctic Ocean, keep in mind that that part is a TSA secure area. The first time I went up there with Tommy, we didn't know that, and so we didn't get permission to go to the Arctic Ocean. That takes about 24 hours. There's a website that you can do that on, so we didn't get to go. But the second time, we did get permission. We did fill out the forms, and we were able to see the Arctic Ocean, which was great. But you have to do that ahead of time. We actually did it in a Ford F-150 Lightning, which is the electric one. Wouldn't recommend that either, because that was kind of like driving 10 hours and charging 18, then driving 10, charging 18. It was a big to-do, but we were the first to drive a truck, an electric truck, up to Prudhoe Bay. But a truck, at least a pickup truck, is definitely the right vehicle for this road, because you can carry your home on the back of it. If you have a camper, you've got four-wheel drive, you've got enough ground clearance. If it's, let's say, a 4x4 version of any of the major pickup trucks, then you're going to have, you know, good off-road tires. I think if it's just two people, I'd probably get something like a mid-size truck. Right now, we have a Ranger Raptor at the office, perfect for this road. But if you want to be more comfortable, get yourself a full-size truck. Of course, a Ram 1500, Silverado or an F-150, I think would be the ideal road trip vehicle for this, because there's something about sitting up high and knowing that you've got enough ground clearance, a big enough gas tank. An F-150, I think you can get with a 36-gallon tank, which will get you at least 600 miles of range, if not more. Kind of solves the problem with the gas. Trucks, of course, have full-size spare, so solves that problem as well. And they're very hardy vehicles. So, you know, you're not going to hit, let's say, a rabbit and take out your entire spoiler like you could do in this vehicle. Overall, I would say if you're going to drive this road, have fun doing it and enjoy the journey, because the destination is okay, but the journey is really what makes it special. So guys, just want to thank you for joining me. I'm my videographer Cole. Thank you, Cole, for all your hard work over the last 4 days. I hope you enjoyed this video series. But before we wrap it up, we still have to get to Dawson Creek, where most of you guys will probably start the journey, but where we're going to be ending it. So I can't wait to see that. So I think we're about 270 kilometers to Dawson, and then we can show you the start of the Alaskan Highway, or for us, the end. Hey, we made it all the way down to Dawson Creek, which is the start of the Alaskan Highway. The car made it, we made it, and you made it with us. So thank you guys for joining us on this journey. And have you watched those like TikToks where, you know, you've got reality versus what looks and happens on Instagram? Well, this is the Instagram part. And if you turn the camera, Cole, there's a line of people waiting to get in front of the sign to prove that they're going to make it all the way up to Alaska. As always, this is Roman and Cole behind the camera saying, what, Cole? Thanks for watching. Go to TFL.com and we'll see you next time. And remember, don't do this at home. Do it on the road. That's stupid. And remember, what should I say, Cole? And remember, if you're going to go up the Alaskan Highway, get yourself a BMW i8, preferably in white so you can see all the dead bugs. And we'll see you next time. Ciao. All right, they got to prove that we were here, of course. So, sure. Let's go right there. Why not? TFL car.